Hey, I'm Becca with the Happy Ever Crafter, and I recently decided to teach myself calligraphy with my left hand. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that my whole shtick is that I can teach you calligraphy even if you have the worst handwriting in the world, because calligraphy and handwriting are totally different things. So with this experiment, I wanted to see if that would even stand with a hand that has no writing experience. Is it just bad handwriting that I could teach, or is it no writing that I could teach? So I took the effort of going through learning calligraphy, the basic strokes of calligraphy, which if you've never seen them before, go check out this video because it's really important. But I taught myself those basic calligraphy strokes over the course of 10 days, and here's how it went. Actually, before I show you how it went, I want you to comment down below if you think it went well or if you think it went badly. Did it work or did it not work? Tell me down below, and then let's roll the tape so you can see what happened. All right, I'm going to talk you through my thoughts here while these clips of my daily writing practice are sped up, because otherwise this would be a very long and very boring video. So these lines of daily drills took me about 15 minutes each time, and if you're a total beginner doing drills for the first time, I would actually recommend doing them for probably at least 20 minutes a day to get that muscle memory. So on day one, I was definitely shaky. It took me a bit to figure out how I wanted to hold the pen, actually. Like whether or not I wanted to have 2 fingers on top or 1 finger on top and all that jazz, just making myself comfortable with holding it. When you've never held a pen in your left hand, it feels weird at first. And I was also experimenting big time with the angle of my paper. That's one thing I know from having taught so many lefties, is that there's a big difference in the ease of writing when you find the right angle for you. So I played with that a lot. Overall, though, I was actually impressed with how decent I was on day one, and I fully attribute that to knowing the shapes of these strokes, like the back of my hand already. And had I actually had to learn the stroke and do it with my left hand for the first time, it definitely wouldn't have been anywhere near as good. So if you're trying this, keep that in mind. I have these shapes burned in my memory, so it's not an extra burden for me to have to remember those. On day 2, I started catching myself going way too fast, and I felt like because I was shaky that maybe going faster would make it less shaky. And then I laughed at myself because I always have this conversation with beginners and I always tell them that that's not true. But when I was doing it myself, I so had that thought and I wanted to do it. So I really had to slow myself down and remember that I'm always telling beginners not to do that. I also totally noticed myself holding my breath and biting my lip and having a death grip on my pen. So adjusting those things as I went. So moral of the story for day 2 was just to slow down and breathe. In day 3, I started to really get into a groove. I felt like things were flowing well that day. I also had these thoughts about how this would be a lot harder with pointed pen because as a lefty, my hand would have been smudging. So to all you lefties doing pointed pen, I bow to you. On day 4, I noticed I was getting super comfortable with the pen. It didn't feel awkward in my hands anymore. It made it a lot easier too when I realized that I hadn't been rotating my pen enough. If you've done brush calligraphy before, you know you should rotate your pen every couple of strokes. And I felt weird doing that for the first few days because it was awkward in my hand, but now I felt a little more comfortable and I started rotating it in between strokes and it made a difference. Day 5, honestly, I felt a little regression, specifically in my ovals. I was starting to get so comfortable with holding the pen that I was going way too fast, which is a classic beginner struggle. So again, I had to catch myself doing something that I'm always telling my students not to do. Day 6, I had a lot of coffee. And I noticed it so much in my shakiness. It's a real thing. I also noticed this super annoying issue where sometimes my downstrokes would start to curve a little bit. And so I started to catch myself and start trying to fix that. Day 7 and 8, I was really comfortable holding the pen and playing with the shapes. So I started trying to pay attention to the weight of my downstrokes and trying to make them more even. Because since the beginning, I was noticing that like for example, on my ascending loops, my stroke would never be as heavy as they were on my descending loops. And so I wanted to try and make them match and fix that. I think it's just a comfort thing. When you're moving in a certain direction, sometimes you're okay pressing harder. So I was trying to make them match from there on. Day 9, I felt like was my absolute best day at these strokes. I was feeling super consistent. I started getting more matchy downstrokes and sort of lighter upstrokes, and I feeling like I didn't need to put so much pressure on the page to reduce my shakiness. I also noticed I was way more consistent when I started working mid-page instead of at the top or the bottom of the sheet. So to account for that, I started moving my page around a little more as I was working instead of trying to keep it in the same spot at all times. And lastly, day 10, I honestly felt like day 10 was worse than day 9, but only because I was rushing and I was excited to finish. So overall, when I look from day 10 to day 1, it's a huge improvement. And it might not look like that to an untrained calligraphy eye, but it's definitely a big improvement when you know what the strokes should look like and how they were shaky and kind of all over the place on day 1 and got a lot better by day 10. But the real test was that I wanted to see if I could complete some actual words. So I wrote out some basic words on the right-hand side of a sheet with my right hand, and then I wanted to try and duplicate them with my left hand. They're definitely not perfect, but they look pretty darn good. Am I right? Like, it's pretty good for a left-hand calligraphy job in 10 days. I'm pretty proud of myself for it. I will accept clapping in the form of hitting the like button on this video. Make me feel good about myself. So all in all, even though my words and my strokes are nowhere near perfect after 10 days, I will say that I did teach myself calligraphy with my left hand from 0 to calligraphy in 10 days. And I gained some serious muscle memory in my left hand. I feel like if I came back and did this even in a few months, I would still have a better muscle memory than I ever did before. Which is exactly what I try to explain to beginners at the start. It's not natural for your hand to do that light up and hard down and not be shaky or rough at the beginning. It's going to be shaky or rough. So even though it's not perfect at the beginning, you're gaining muscle memory every single time you practice, and every time you come back, you're gonna remember a little tweaky thing like I did with my little red notes on my pages. Rotate the paper more, move it closer to your body, move it farther away from your body, change the angle of the pen. All these little things over time are gonna build up and they're gonna improve your skill big time. So my left hand is my non-dominant hand, and I obviously need a lot more practice with it to get where I am with my right hand. And so that may be how you're feeling. Even if you're using your dominant hand to write, you probably still need a lot more practice after just 10 days. And that's where my beginner course comes in. I have a course that teaches you from the very ground up. It's called Show Me Your Drills. I teach you what pens you need, how to hold them, all the different tweaky things that I showed you in this video, and how to actually put them together. And so all of that is free. If you want to come and join me, you can go to showmeyourdrills.com to sign up. And I would love to have you. Because if I can do this with my non-dominant hand, I can definitely teach you to do this with your actual dominant hand. So I'd love to see you in the course. I'm gonna link you to another helpful tutorial video, and I hope to see you over there.